and welcome to my first webinar on the flow. So my name is Lily, and so for those of you who don't know me, I will introduce myself in the presentation, which I will start right now. So just, it's normal because it's a webinar that you don't have your video turned on or your microphone. I'll just be doing the presentation for 40 minutes. I'm keeping this short on the free version of Zoom. That also forces me to be concise and make it interesting for you. So I'm going to share my screen onto the desktop. Share computer sound. Okay, so by now you should see, normally you should see my screen. And I'm going to go into full screen to begin. So, welcome to my webinar on the flow. So this is an introductory webinar about the flow. So I will introduce myself for people who don't know me. I'm a French-American musician. I go by the name Lily J for my music. And I'm also a sound designer and engineer. And last year I was certified, I became a yoga teacher in Tenerife. So just yoga like for Hatha and Vinyasa. And just recently this year in February, I was certified as the first flow coach in France. As you can see, I just put a screenshot here of my certificate. So then I will talk a bit about what flow is. So obviously, I think you might have heard about, the vernacular of what, like, you kind of have an idea of what flow could mean in today's language. But the flow I'm also talking about here is a discipline that I learned, and it's very, very recent. As you can see here, the actual name of the it's more than a company. It's like a, it's a project and it's a discipline. Is the brainchild of Katja Zupan and Sergei Petrovich in Slovenia. So it's about 5 years old. Nirvana is about 5 years old. And then the flow parts, because as you can see here, I have the Nirvana network. I put Nirvana Ultimate Body and Mind System, and then Flow by Nirvana. So it's two branches of the same network. And Flow, so the thing that I'm certified in, is only about 2 years old, which would explain why I'm the first flow coach in France. I think we're only about 100 coaches in the world at this moment. So both disciplines, actually, like I said, they come from the same concepts, philosophy, which I will talk about, and share the same objectives. And it's really, really great to combine these two. I was supposed to do my Nirvana certification, but then the virus hit the world and it's postponed for now. So why did I choose flow? I thought it would be interesting to mention this, like what really got my attention, what made me so thirsty to learn about this. I immediately realized when I browsed the information online that there was so much depth scientifically in psychology and research. It spans over 40 years of research that's been combined and been developed, and so there's also this beautiful holistic aspect of flow. Since I do yoga, music, meditation, this sort of combines and brings them all together into this one philosophy. And it's also universal because, you can apply the flow method to all people because every single person has already experienced the flow state. We experience it on a regular basis, even if it's for just 3 to 5 seconds. And finally, really most importantly, I felt that I needed it. I felt I was having a burnout in December, feeling scattered, stretched out because I was doing so many things at the same time and I was trying to fit everything in on a tight schedule. So I felt drained and anxious and unfocused, and I was not present in my activities. Even yoga teachers get burned out, especially yoga teachers. And finally, if you want references, testimonials, and links, they're available on the website, and I can give you this link after the presentation. Just send me a message. By the way, Just anytime you want to tell me something or ask me a question, just write it in the chat of the Zoom and I'll get back to you after the presentation. So last thing before I start, there's a free ebook as well, this really cool free ebook about with breathing detox techniques. Same thing, just send me a message if you're interested and I'll send it to you. This is my website, lilyjordy.com. It's very recently been put online last week. So the English version is still not up. It's for now it's in French. But if you go under the Flow tab, you can schedule a free Skype consultation call with me. It's just like we can have a 30-minute talk about the flow and how the flow could help you, how this method could help you in your life. So you can go ahead there. And lastly, I'm at the end of this presentation. If you stick around, I have a discount code for the app, which anyone can use. You don't need to do like the the flow program. You don't have to go through the program and stuff. This is available for anyone, and I have a code for you guys to get a discount. So let's begin. A bit of history. So with the term flow, it was actually the way we use it in Nirvana. The term flow was coined by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. So I had to look up online how to pronounce his name. As a Hungarian psychologist, he did so much work in the 80s and 90s on what makes a human being fulfilled. What does it mean to be happy, truly happy? And so he coined the term flow. And so I really like this quote down here. The best moments in our lives are not the passive, receptive, relaxing times. The best moments occur if a person's body or mind is stretched to its limits in a voluntary effort to accomplish something difficult and worthwhile. And here's a little group of effects, positive effects that the flow state can bring to you. So there's things such as increased focus, intuition, creativity, motivation, ability to improvise, think outside the box, increased overall joy, efficiency, decreased anxiety. I think maybe now you've got an idea of what flow is, and then we'll actually go into the official effects and stuff. Have you ever felt these things? These are actually the 8 characteristics of flow that Mihai had coined also in the 80s and 90s. Complete concentration on the task. I'll let you read them. I'm trying to keep it concise. I won't read them all out loud, but just scanning through these, I think you'll get an idea of what flow can bring about in terms of sensation, in terms of benefits. This is now the flow initiation workshop, which I sort of cut down and I picked my favorite parts that I found interesting. In this workshop, we're going to go through the introduction to the flow state with like a couple of videos, and then the science behind the flow state, the flow code method, and then like a few of like the different branches of categories of the flow triggers. So let's start. This is really the sentence that is in the beginning of the flow code manual. You see here it says flow code. We'll watch this right after, which is kind of like the book that we read when we learn this method to become a coach and also just to learn for ourselves. It's that the state of flow or being in the zone is a state of peak performance. And now we're gonna, stay with this and check out this video. And we're going to, this is like about a 2-minute video, and just wait and see.
Flow code, lesson number 1. What is a flow state? Hi, and I am Max Flow. I will be your leading voice through the complete flow code lessons. Let's peek first into what the flow state is all about. You know that state we're in when we act with razor-sharp focus. Our confidence is overwhelmed with certainty. Our body and mind adapts to the situation effortlessly. It's in this state that we take giant steps in our level of fulfillment, moving in the direction that was previously not even dreamt of. In it, we are completely dissolved in what we're doing. so much that it feels like time is slowing down. We're so deeply in the present moment that we merge with activity itself, giving us the overwhelming feeling of being at one. In that state, there is no doubt. There are no stresses or pressures blocking us from achieving what we want. There's no inner voice criticizing every move we make. We are completely immersed in the task at hand. The state is not elusive. This state is not mythical. It's called the flow state. When we are in flow, we are adjusting to reality cues, like riding a flow wave. We experience the most desirable state we may find ourselves in. It's about total trust and total absence of fear, a sense of extreme happiness, connectedness, and harmony pervades into your being. You feel in tune with the task, moving with accuracy and composure, and fully enjoy every second of it. Athletes call it runner's high, or being in the zone. Others call it a heightened state of consciousness. Buddhists call it Nirvana. We call it the state of flow, a fluid stream of optimal perception and optimal experience, a state where everything just flows.
Okay, how did you enjoy that? I just,
Flow code.
oh, sorry. I just laughed because I remember the first time I saw this video and I thought it was like, I felt like I was watching a preview of, like for an action film at the movie theater. I thought it was kind of a lot in terms of intensity, but I, just try to make abstraction of the voice and like the effects and stuff. It's a bit cheeky, but like the content itself, I still was really, really intrigued, and which is what we'll get into now. So to summarize a bit the introductory video, the flow state is a fluid stream of optimal perception and experience. It's the most desirable state that you want to be in when you're in an activity. And it's a state we're all seeking, because it's kind of like when it is a form of deep meditation when and it's kind of paradoxical when once we do notice we're in that state, we come out of it. And so the flow coaching and the flow method is really what we're trying to do is get into this state more easily and more often and stay in it as longer and longer. So here are a few quotes that describe flow. I'm not going to read them all out, just maybe the middle one: a mental state of operation in which a person performing an activity is fully immersed in a feeling of energized focus, full involvement, and deep enjoyment. So this is where we get into the science of flow, because and I really love this passage. Again, these are just really, it's very concise, it's just bullet points, but when you do read the flow code manual, the way it's explained, it's very enlightening and inspiring about evolution, and it makes sense. So what it says basically is that flow is a key element in the survival and evolution of our species, and of any species, because the neurophysiological connection between pleasure and effort is something that makes up a part of our DNA and a part of our brain. If we didn't have this connection between effort and pleasure, then we would just, we would like let ourselves go. We would not be striving to move forward and strive to improve ourselves, and also just in terms of survival. So that's why, that's why we do have, even though we love to sit on the couch and we have that kind of enjoyment as well, we have this intrinsic happiness when we push ourselves to our limits, when we overcome obstacles, and when we achieve something from an effort. This is like just a little graph that shows, when our skill and ability level is high and our challenge level is low, then we're bored and we're, apathetic. If the challenge is too high, the skill ability level is low, then I think that's even worse. That is worse. We get worried and anxious, and nobody wants to feel that way. We want to be prepared. So we could say the flow state is when we're really in this optimal area here of high skill, high ability, and high challenge. So here we have the transient hypofrontality. So this word sounds a little bit, oh, can I just remind you, whoever joins the meeting, to please turn off your mics or videos. But I don't know if anyone can see it. Everyone can see it. So when I first heard this transient hypofrontality word, I thought this sounds super fancy and super complicated. But what it means is that transient means it's temporary, and hypofrontality means that the front part is lowered. And what we're talking about here is the prefrontal cortex. So when we're in the normal state of of operating, of being, our prefrontal cortex is responsible for like the rational thinking. It's responsible for the ego. It's responsible for self critique and being aware of ourselves. It also, since it makes us so aware, and we're always like, it makes us calculate everything, it makes us a bit slower in our reactions because we automatically are analyzing something before we take action. And when we enter the flow state, this prefrontal cortex that's responsible for the ego, responsible for analytics, or solving a math problem or whatever, is going to get deactivated in a sense. It's going to become a bit dormant for just a transient amount of time, and this part of the brain will operate in alpha theta waves. So what this means, when we look at the conscious and unconscious mind as well, the conscious mind, we can say, is that part, when we have the prefrontal cortex, which is active, and then the subconscious, we know, like this analogy of the iceberg, the dark matter of the brain is actually the biggest mass of the brain, but it's something that we can't actively and can't consciously access. It's something that instead of needing a lot of energy to operate and requiring a lot of energy, it requires very little to process things very, very quickly. And it's completely subjective. It does not think or reason independently. It just obeys the commands. So basically, what I loved about this is that it seems contradictory that when we deactivate a part of our brain, like the prefrontal cortex, we actually, it's a doorway. It's like opening the doorway to a higher state of consciousness and a higher state of mental experience. This gives a little bit of an idea of what happens when we're in the flow state, starting from the build-up, gain, peak, and transition, and afterglow. So here we have the different brain waves that are associated with different mental states. All of these brain waves, by the way, they're constantly present in our brain. There's not all of a sudden just alpha theta and then all the other ones are gone. We have a brainwave mix, and then we just have, depending on the different states we're in, we have one that's more prominent than the other three different ones. So here, what the sweet spot that they're talking about is the 7 to 8 hertz. The alpha theta waves, that is the flow sweet spot. It's the optimal frequency to enter the flow state. So this state is like when we're in deep meditation, or when we're in lucid dreaming. So it's not like when we're in deep sleep, that would be more like delta, really, really low waves. It's more between 7 and 8 hertz. This is also another an explanation of the two different nervous systems. We have the sympathetic nervous system, which is responsible for the fight or flight response, and the parasympathetic, which is responsible for like the feed, breathe, rest, and digest. The flow zone is when we are in a perfect balance, perfect harmony between these two nervous systems. Like what I was saying in the beginning, not too bored and relaxed, and not in like a high state of anxiety either. Just checking. Let me see if I can. I'm just trying to hide the side here. There. Okay. Here I've got this other video. This is a really cool thing about the different chemicals that are released in each phase of the flow, the buildup, gain, peak, and transition. There's actually an order to the release of these chemicals, which I'm going to show you here. And I've already loaded it, so.
Flow Code Lesson 19, Neurochemicals of Flow. Hi, this is Max Flow. Now let's shed some light on what is going on with the neurochemicals during flow experience. We can see from the graph that sequence of events that happen during the flow wave begin with the release of norepinephrine and dopamine, raising the heart rate, tightening focus, improving our pattern recognition. Our brain waves move from beta towards alpha, giving us the ability to link ideas without internal obstructions and filters blocking our flow. Prefrontal cortex at this point becomes less active, giving us the sense of time distortion, effortlessness, while the self is dissolved in the task. Our inner critic is also less active, opening us up to our full potential. In flow gain phase, the body releases endorphins, which is complemented by anandamide during the flow peak phase, giving us the ability to dissolve away distress and pain. At the same time, anandamide boosts our thinking, allowing us to solve problems in an indirect and creative way. As we dive deeper into the flow wave, theta brainwaves enhance our relaxation and our intuition. Concluding the flow wave experience, the body releases oxytocin and serotonin, creating so-called afterglow effects. This effect gives us the feeling of trust, peace, well-being, and a desire to reach out and bond socially. Description of neurochemicals and their role in flow. As we have learned, our brain and body release powerful performance-enhancing neurotransmitters and hormones that act as paint for the canvas. Here is a more in-depth explanation of each of the neurochemicals involved in the flow state experience. Norepinephrine speeds up heart rate, improves muscle tension, triggers the release of glucose, giving us more energy. Our neural efficiency is up. Dopamine gives us the feeling of engagement in a task and rewards us for it. Dramatically increases our attention, improves pattern recognition and muscle control. Endorphins. This pain reliever and euphoric neurotransmitters are pretty strong, to say the least. There are 20 different types of endorphins, and they are more powerful than medical morphine. Anandamide. The word is taken from the Sanskrit word ananda, which means bliss, delight. Anandamide was found to do a lot more than produce the state of heightened happiness. It is synthesized in areas of the brain that are important in memory, motivation, higher thought process, and movement control. It plays a role in pain, appetite, and fertility. It also helps put the brakes on cancer cell proliferation and exhibits both anti-anxiety and antidepressant properties. Anandamide, like all neurotransmitters, is fragile and breaks down quickly, which is why it cannot produce a perpetual state of bliss. Oxytocin, the love hormone, is associated solely with maternal behaviors and sex, while recent findings point to a broader scope in human social bonding, trust, and emotional behaviors. Serotonin affects mood, social behavior, appetite, digestion, sleep, memory, and sexual desire. Studies have found that when serotonin has arrived, the state has already happened, so we can associate it more with the afterglow effect.
All right. I hope you're enjoying these videos as much as I did the first time I saw them. with that really charismatic voice of Max Flow. I'm going to get back to the, there we go. So see, as you can hear all of these chemical effects, there's so much depth and so much richness in what the flow state can bring us in terms of positive effects in the brain and our relation to others, feeling of oneness, feeling of love, unconditional love, and confidence especially. So how does it feel to be in the flow state? There, you're going to see that we're going to do a few, whoever has their mic on, can they please turn it off? Just, wait, I got it. I'll continue, sorry. There, cool. We're going to see a few different, menus with like 7 or 8 different characteristics. Don't get too caught up in like how they're organizing stuff because it's very complex. The book is a few hundred pages, so I just picked out a few of the main things that give an interesting insight on the flow state. So one of the main components is a flow personality. So when we want to enter the flow state more easily, we want to develop an optimal flow personality. It has 7 different characteristics. I'm going to go through them pretty quickly because I only have 13 minutes left. Being at one, so this is what we were talking about even with the chemicals that are released in the brain and the hypofrontality that takes place, is the feeling of being merged, not only yourself with the task, so it's not you performing the action, you become the action, like in deep meditation and yoga. This also creates a feeling of being at one with the universe. So there's a lot of spirituality that gets tied into this, but it's very uplifting, trust me. There's also no fear, because there's no room for fear when we're in the deep present moment. Contained inner critic, so since the ego is dropped, we don't have this sort of like everyone has it sometimes, this critical voice that can come in and prevent us from being the maximum, from living the maximum potential of what we could be living. Deep immersion as well, so we act with razor sharp focus, completely involved in what we're doing, so it ties in with being at one with the activity. And so when I say the activity, flow is for any kind of activity. It could be in a conversation, a deep conversation with someone. It can be while you're cooking, while you're writing an essay, while you're gardening. It can be absolutely any moment of your day. Time distortion. So this is also an interesting one because it's not that time gets longer or shorter. It's just we lose perception of it, since scientists, researchers have found that the prefrontal cortex that gets deactivated or gets lowered in action is responsible for our perception of time. That's why we can be deeply immersed in something and it feels like 30 minutes went by when it's just been 1 minute, and vice versa. Sometimes we can be writing and it feels like 5 minutes went by and then we've actually been sitting there for 1 hour. And we have active flow control, which is like the profound feeling of gaining control. I'm just going a little bit quicker. Playfulness, also, this is like the idea of seeing the world through the eyes of a child and never getting blasé about something. When we're playful, we're rewarded with an inexhaustible source of energy, of life that lies within us. There's also optimal flow setup. See, this is just gives an idea of like what we do when we do flow coaching and when we implement these methods that have been researched. There's the intention to the flow. So even before starting to get into the flow, there's the intention. There's the flow personality mindset, which we just looked at, that had 7 different parts. Then the balance challenge. So finding an activity that like that graph, that's challenging, but it's not going to make you feel discouraged in being too challenging. Then perception feedback, clear goals, immersed focus. Oh, Zoom is telling me to buy more time. Can you believe it? Immersed focused attention and deep embodiment. these are the 7 pillars of the flow code method. So you see, we've got another wheel. We have the flow personality that we just looked at, and then merging kinesiology and unique breathwork technique. This one here is what the Nirvana body and mind system is. That is the second part of the Nirvana project, which is why I was also got into this, because imagine a class where it's not yoga or Pilates where someone is just telling you to inhale and exhale, but you have music that's made for each movement, and each movement is made with a breath, and everything is synchronized to the music and to the breath. So that means that it leaves no space for your mind to wander. You're truly like immersed in what you're doing, because every single movement, every single breath is synchronized. Everyone is doing it together, so you can totally let go. There's no room for anything else to come in. So those were like the two main. These are other things that are part of the flow personality and flow mindset. That's what I just talked about. The second one here, flow anchoring. So the recalls, rituals, and intentions are all available as videos, and they're things that we do in classes and workshops together as a group or alone. And these triggers can be used over and over to basically set the conditions, set the perfect environment and conditions so that you can enter the flow state more easily and more often. So these are the 4 different types of triggers. Because I talked about triggers, so maybe I wonder what you were thinking about when I said trigger. Is it music? Is it smell? Is it like being in a certain environment? So these are the 4 different channels that we have. Sensory flow, which is influenced through perception senses. So that would be the smells, the sounds, visual imagery. Cognitive flow is like the mindset. The social flow would be, being in a context in a group and encouragement through the group and like the feeling of community. Environmental flow is like taking a walk in the forest and breathing the smell. The smell would be the sensory, but walking in the forest surrounded by the trees to ease the mind, ease away the stress. These are the different channel triggers that we have. I'm going to show you in a video, and I hope the internet, it only messed up once, the internet of the last video. One of the really common breath works we do is the dolphin breath. So when I first heard that, I wondered what, how can we breathe like a dolphin? But it's basically because dolphins, like many other mammals and aquatic animals, they can hold their breath for a very long time. And this is about keeping holding our breath. We do this also in pranayama and yoga to really calm the nervous system. So this is an intervention example of a vagal sensory flow alignment, which is in the sensory triggers. And I've already loaded them early so that they would not buffer too much.
Nirvana.
I forgot to mention, you can go ahead and follow the video as well if you want.
Nirvana.
So I'm not going to do the whole video, but you saw how we inhaled and held the breath and then exhaled through the mouth. We do usually through the mouth, the exhale. So I'm going to come back. So there's only 2 or 3 slides left. This was a real challenge to get all this in 40 minutes. So I'm going to go, so I'm not going to go through all of these, but the flow mindset alignment I think maybe you can get an idea of what they mean. Like the awe mindset is like, even if you do horseback riding every week, every time you go, you put yourself in that feeling that you're seeing it for the first time with new eyes, and like it's a very new experience. That way you'll never take it for granted. Gratitude mindset, same thing. That way you come in with like a fresh perspective and you never take things for granted. Playful mindset we saw already. And the creator mindset is that we create our reality through our eyes. So it gives us a lot of empowerment as well. And I'm going to skip them because I wanted to end this in a nice way. Anyway, these are, I'm not going to play them in intervention examples with different mindset rituals, light meditation. This one's really nice. There's a lot of interventions, to do before you go to bed or just to relax with like an audio visual sort of experience. And so here's the mission statement. So the goal is to create a culture of peace and unity. To attain this goal, we must change the base of how we perceive and filter reality. The flow state allows us to create a more desirable reality tunnel, one that merges the individual with the collective, creating a common bioethical ground. Project Unity is built on the premise of the latest interdisciplinary research of the flow state as an optimal state of perception, self-improvement, and transcendence, a way to express true unity in our diversity for the entire human race. Project Unity is striving to expand the flow culture and to share flow principles and concepts with the general public on new levels. I was able to finish, but I have 2 minutes left because I wanted to, I didn't want to finish the PowerPoint with, and say bye like that. So I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation that there's this app. You just have to go to theflowhub.com, and it's called FlowHub 7. If you use my little voucher here, Lily Jordy, you get a 10% discount. In all honesty, I wish it was more than 10%, but it's not expensive. It's like $9 a month or something. You get a discount for the monthly subscription. It includes like 5 to 10 minute kind of exercises. So you can be sitting in public transportation and like, oh, I need to breathe or do some kind of meditation, and you can follow it on your phone. So with that, I'm going to stop the screen share if I know how. No, I'm going to go back here. Anyway, I have 50 seconds left. Thank you so much for joining me today and learning about the flow state. Come and boost your immune system, especially in these times. Find calm, find confidence and gratitude in every day in what you do. It's really, really cool, even just to learn more about it, even if you don't want to get too serious about it. You can send me any questions you have in the chat here on Zoom, or you can send me an email and I'll be really happy to get back to you. So thank you and have a really, really beautiful day or night. And let's see each other soon.